Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking on the ultimate homeowners detective case. You know, if you live in a house that isn't hooked up to a municipal grid, you've probably stared at your tap at some point and wondered, what exactly is flowing out of my private well? Is it perfectly pristine, or is it secretly harboring hidden contaminants? Well, grab your magnifying glass, because today we're going full investigator mode to decode this mystery from start to finish.
So let's just tackle the big question right out of the gate. Do you really need a well water filter, especially if you're out in places like the Chicago suburbs where private wells are super common? Now, you might be crossing your fingers for a simple yes or no, but for homes off the grid, the answer is pretty much always it depends. There's just no universal answer, simply because your well is completely unique to your property.
Here's our game plan for the investigation. Number 1, the well water mystery. 2, why water quality varies. 3, testing before you treat. 4, the usual suspects. 5, choosing the right system. And 6, safety and maintenance. Let's get right to it.
All right, diving into Section 1, the well water mystery and uncovering the hyperlocal reality.
To really understand what's going on with your well, we kind of have to contrast it with what most folks are used to. Municipal tap water is treated on this massive regional scale. The city is doing all the balancing, the filtering, the safety protocols way before a single drop hits your street. But private well water, that is hyper-local. The quality can literally change from your neighborhood to the very next one over. And it doesn't stop there. It changes over time, too. Your well is essentially a living, breathing, constantly shifting water source. Which brings us to Section 2. Why water quality varies. Because with private wells, it really is what's underground that counts.
Look at all the crazy variables at play down there. Your well draws from underground formations, and those geological conditions vary wildly, even just across town. How deep your well is and how it was built are massive factors. But honestly, it's not just Mother Nature at work. It's your neighbors too. Nearby agricultural runoff, older infrastructure, or, yes, even your neighbor's aging, leaky septic system can directly influence what ends up in your pipes. And of course, the environment throws its own curveballs with the seasons.
Actually, speaking of the environment, here's a wild card for you: the weather. You'd think being deep underground keeps your water totally safe from the elements, right? Well, not exactly. Severe seasonal events, like a huge rainstorm or heavy snowmelt, can cause sudden, dangerous spikes in bacteria. All that surface water runs off, and it can drag contaminants straight down into the groundwater supply your well depends on. So a heavy storm isn't just flooding your yard, it could be fundamentally altering the safety of your drinking water.
So how do we find out what's down there? That's Section 3, test before you treat, the investigation phase.
If you only remember one thing from this entire explainer, please let it be this. The most reliable approach is to test your water, interpret the results, and match your treatment to your specific risks, period. Before you spend a single dime on shiny filtration equipment, you need hard evidence. If you've never tested your well, or if it's been years, getting a sample evaluated by a certified lab is absolutely step number 1.
When you do finally send that sample off to the lab, they're going to run some standard checks to build a baseline profile for your water. They're hunting for microbial contamination, especially those harmful bacteria. They'll test for heavy metals, they'll look for nitrates, and they'll check the basic chemistry, like how hard or soft your water actually is. That lab report becomes the concrete evidence you need to make a smart, informed decision.
Got your lab results back? Great. Time for Section 4, the usual suspects. Let's identify the culprits. So, who are we usually dealing with here? Well, bacteria and coliform are definitely your most serious threats. They mean a real contamination risk and require serious, immediate disinfection. Then you've got the annoying stuff, like sediment causing cloudy water, or iron and manganese leaving nasty stains and bad tastes. A straightforward filtration or oxidation system can usually knock those out. And finally, there's hardness. It's not going to hurt you, but it will absolutely destroy your plumbing over time with scale buildup, which is where a water softener steps in.
I do want to pause and highlight one very specific suspect that might show up on those lab tests, and that's nitrates. Nitrates are a uniquely serious health risk, particularly if you have little ones, like infants, living in the house. Treating this requires highly targeted options that depend entirely on the levels the lab finds. This is exactly why wandering into a hardware store and buying a generic filter off the shelf is a really bad idea.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 5, choosing the right system, and why there is definitely no one-size-fits-all fix.
When we're sizing up a solution, we're basically looking at two main categories. First, you have point-of-use systems. These are installed right at a specific sink, usually just to handle your drinking water. On the flip side, whole-house systems tackle the water the second it enters your home, meaning it's treated before it ever reaches a tap, your shower, or your washing machine. A minor sediment issue, a point-of-use filter might be totally fine. But heavy metals or bacteria, yeah, you're going to need a comprehensive whole-house strategy.
And honestly, this is where bringing in a reputable water treatment professional is a total game changer. We aren't just talking about someone trying to sell you hardware. A true pro helps you actually decipher those complex lab results. They figure out the exact equipment sizing based on your family's water usage. They set up your maintenance plan, and they make sure it's installed safely. When it's your family's drinking water on the line, having an expert guide you from evidence to solution is just invaluable.
All right, let's bring it home with Section 6, Safety and Routine Maintenance, because we want to keep that water safe long-term.
Here is your simple, empowering master plan. Step 1, get the hard evidence by testing your water at a certified lab. Step 2, sit down with a pro to interpret those results. Step 3, install a targeted system custom designed for your well. And finally, Step 4, keep a maintenance log and retest. Because let's face it, a filtration system is only going to protect you if you actually maintain it.
So what does that maintenance actually look like? You've got to stay on top of scheduled cartridge or media changes and routinely monitor your disinfection systems if you have them. But here's a crucial tip a lot of people overlook. Watch your neighborhood. Keep an eye out for new construction nearby, well repairs happening next door, or even plumbing renovations in your own house. Any of those things can suddenly shift the underground reality of your well, which means you might need a retest to make sure your system is still doing its job. And that brings us to the ultimate takeaway for today. Do you need a well water filter in the Chicago suburbs? You very well might, but the right answer is completely determined by what is actually in your well. No guessing, just gathering the facts through testing and taking targeted action based on the evidence. So I'm going to leave you with a provocative question to chew on today. What is hiding in your well water right now? Seriously, don't let it be a mystery. Stop guessing, start investigating, and go get your water tested so you can finally take control of what's flowing out of your tap. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and happy testing.